Listen, I think one thing is clear with Elon and Vivek. They want to cut some of the spending out of the government. And so when I think of, we have a $6.75 trillion budget. When you look at Medicare, Social Security, and interest payments, that's 57%. If you throw defense on top of it, you're like at 75%. And so you only have 25% to work with, unless you're going to attack those sacred spaces, right? Medicare, Social Security have always been third rails. The easiest thing is to pressure the Fed to cut rates, right? Every 25 basis points of rate cuts saves $25 billion from your budget. Now think about how many $100,000 employees you need to cut out of the government to save $25 billion. Like, quickly do a calculator and do the math, right? And so the biggest fix for the government would be to get short rates down, so our funding costs. And I think the story they're going to tell is we're going to need monetary policy because we're going to be really good on fiscal. We're going to cut. Now, if that's the case, it's great for the stock market. It's great for America. The proof will be in the pudding. Can they cut, right?
But Mike,
we know Trump wants to cut taxes to spur growth, but can he cut spending? And he never has in his career. I think you've got to sell the long end. Every rally you want to sell. Listen, because if the things are working, the Fed's going to cut rates, right? Again, this idea of how do you cut interest rate costs down, and the yield curve steepens. And so I just don't think there's a whole lot of value in a world. And listen, Bitcoin is telling you that. Gold, silver tells you that. Like, the world is still worried. The only way you get out of $36 trillion of debt is to inflate it away. And you want to gracefully inflate it away. You can't have hyperinflation or you have chaos, right? You want to run 4% inflation. That's hard to do, but that's the goal.
Right.
Low probability, right? You know how Congress works. The House gets excited or the executive gets excited and the Senate says, calm down, right? That's the role of the Senate. And while the Republicans control the Senate, they don't have 60 seats. They don't have close to 60. And so, listen, I think it would be very smart for the United States to take the Bitcoin they have and maybe add some to it and say, we want to show the world that we're going to be a technology first country, a crypto digital asset first country. I don't necessarily think the dollar needs anything to back it up. We have the strongest military in the world. We have the dominant economy in the world, and the reserve currency we've earned. And to need to back up the reserve currency is counterintuitive. And so, again, listen, if we get the Bitcoin reserve, and as a guy that owns a lot of Bitcoin, I will not cry. And if you see me crying, there'll be crocodile tears. I think Bitcoin heads to 500,000. Again, it's a whole different paradigm because it forces every other country in. Countries are already buying it. I've got a dear friend, the guy that actually turned me on to Bitcoin in 2013, who's in the Mideast right now, and he said he's never seen anything like it. He's convincing more people to buy Bitcoin in the 3 days he's been there than any time in his whole career. And they're huge pools of capital. And so we're seeing something globally. When Trump advocated in Nashville that he was going to be a crypto president, a Bitcoin president, and now he's the president, let me tell you, other leaders heard that. And so I think we're strapping in for what could be an amazing rally. Total market cap of gold, I think, is like 16 trillion, right? And so that's 800,000 Bitcoin. So when does Bitcoin become gold? Like, there's a new generation that cares more about Bitcoin than they care about gold. I'm turning 60 next week, and so I still own a bunch of gold. I'm an old guy. But let me tell you, no 40-year-olds on gold, no 30-year-olds on gold. And so as we see this generational shift, like, Bitcoin should match gold within 5 or 10 years. And that gets you to 800,000. That's with current gold prices. I think gold's going higher.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you join the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And also, guys, make sure you go like and follow the TikTok. More videos to come. And we have Mike Novogratz on Elon. says that he wants to cut deficit, but doesn't think Trump is going to pull it off. But guys, we know for a fact they're going to be cutting this deficit, and we also know Mike Novogratz knows that. The Goldman Sachs guy. He knows the mission of Fourth Industrial Revolution because he's helping with the plan. Don't forget, he's in charge of FTX assets, Galaxy Digital. And he says every time the Fed cuts 25 basis points, that's $25 billion off the deficit, but we're in debt $35 trillion, and we're paying almost $1 trillion just to service the debt. $25 billion is not going to do anything. But he's definitely right about all the jobs that are going to be cut. And Mike Novogratz told the truth when it comes to the long end of these bonds. He would be a seller. Remember, guys, nobody wants this long-term paper. So that means the Fed and the Treasury is going to be forced to buy it to hold things up. But we know they have that solution. And Mike Novogratz is asked about the Bitcoin reserves. Doesn't think it's going to happen. Says the dollar doesn't need any backing. The dollar is fine. Again, we know Mike Novogratz is not telling us the truth. We know the dollar is no longer going to be that world reserve currency. Yes, it takes time to get rid of, but we're going to a level playing field. We know all these countries that got off the dollar and no longer using. And there's more countries to come. And I'm going to put the evidence in both the patrons. We know while the sheep sleep, the NWO bills, and there was a big move made. Now we have Max Layton from Citi says that this Trump rally was all an algorithm. And we know that is a fact. And gold will stay strong, and we know why. These central banks are buying up. And we have CNBC Steve Leisman talks about the Fed on delinquencies rising. And we know inflation is still hot. And Mike Novogratz stated that we can inflate our way out of this debt at around 4%. If that's the case, the Fed doesn't have too much room to cut. And so many Fed officials stated that inflation would be here for a while. But we know consumers will spend till the end. And then we have the president's cabinet looking like a movie because these next 4 years are going to be a movie. And remember, the Cryptoteacher told you. And then we have Nvidia in Japan partnering with SoftBank to bring the largest AI factory. And then we have Jim Cramer pushing this robot narrative, states that if Trump gets rid of all these immigrants, you're going to need the robots. And we know this narrative is definitely going to be pushed over these next 4 years. And remember, the Cryptoteacher told you. And we have Masayoshi-san talks about bringing AI to the robots. And never forget, the Japan leaders were brought to San Francisco to plan out this fourth industrial revolution. And he said it out of his own mouth. The robots, algorithms, and drones. And you give these machines all this data, and they'll be able to process it in seconds. They will definitely be a force to reckon with. And then they talk about robots knowing your health, being your tutor, and then growing up with you to remember everything that you did. And we know technology can be used for good or evil. They don't want you to have any privacy. Remember, privacy is going to be the new gold in the fourth industrial revolution. I don't want you to remember everything I did. And then we have AI generates the CNBC hosts. They're talking to each other. And anytime they come to mainstream media, they're going to give us the dumbed down version. But we know this technology is decades old. They have the real one behind the curtain. And remember, the Cryptoteacher told you. Because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Trump looking like he's going to have a red sweep and lower deregulation or higher deregulation, lower tax environment has led money into equities, money into Bitcoin, and money out of gold. And on top of that, some part of gold's rally was momentum-based, algorithmic, machine buying, and some of that is coming out. And critical to the gold outlook in the very near term is just how much of that money's come out in terms of momentum sellers, and how much more is to come out in the very near term.
Okay. So, I know we're not on the gold standard anymore. The U.S. still does hold gold, but we also have a lot of other central banks buying gold. So is the idea of creating a crypto reserve, does that really threaten gold at all, especially when we have China buying so much gold and other central banks buying so much gold? Is that headline alone just a serious threat to gold in your mind?
I don't think it is in any way a threat to gold at all. I think the gold build-out of reserves started in the middle of 2022 in quite a material way, and it has gone on since then, and it's got many, many more years to run, in our opinion.
Okay.
It's led by China, of course, but also a number of other countries across the rest of the world are building their reserves pretty aggressively.
Yeah, some mixed news here on this delinquency issue, which we've been following for quite a while. Total delinquencies did rise to up by 0.3% to 3.5% of debt outstanding, the highest level since the second quarter of 2020. But don't get too concerned, because it remains below the pandemic era, which was always closer to 4.7 or 4.8%. New delinquencies, that is transitioning to 30 days plus, it was up for autos, mortgage, but was down for credit cards, which you'll see in a little bit has been the problem area. The number of foreclosures and bankruptcies both declined, but they remain elevated. Okay.
And the latest read on inflation, CPI for October, the headline increasing 0.2% in line with estimates. The core was a little hotter. Here to break down what it all means, Brian Jacobson. He's chief economist at Annex Wealth Management. I'm in the sticky camp on this one, Brian, but the markets are pricing in higher odds of a rate cut in December now. Higher odds even in Jan and March, although they seem to now think we'll be going every other meeting.
Yeah, it does seem like that. When we were talking about it on our investment committee here, we were really looking at the numbers, and I think we agree with you that it is going to be higher for a longer period of time, but that still gives the Fed room to continue to cut, because if you look at real interest rates, which is what the Fed is mostly concerned about, even at around, say, 4.5% or even 4%, that is still at a faster run rate than overall inflation. So even if we peter out here at 2.5% inflation year over year, they could really cut rates down to 3.5%, and then we'd be at a neutral stance. So monetary policy is still restrictive. It's almost as though the Fed, they're just slowly taking their foot off of the brake with the rate cuts. They're not pushing on the accelerator yet.
You get a burst of serious inflation, it takes time to dissipate. It's never transitory.
So does this all mean that you are still loving financials and small caps?
Relative to large cap growth, absolutely. I like non-U.S. markets. Relative to U.S., absolutely. U.S. growth stocks are the most expensive investments in the world, for a good reason. They're great companies, but that's in the price. And I do think Trump has inherited a poison chalice, as would Harris if she had won, because you have a stock market that's extremely high, and you have economic headwinds that are being masked by a wealth effect from a booming stock market, and by spending that hasn't dissipated. Spending engendered during the pandemic, people were spending like there's no tomorrow because they thought there might be no tomorrow. And once you start overspending, it's hard to stop it.
Yes, hard to, sometimes only goes one way.
News, Scott, that's right. The president-elect Donald Trump now saying that Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz is his pick for Attorney General. This is just coming out just in the last couple of minutes. The president-elect posting on Truth Social, his social media platform, that, quote, few issues in America are more important than ending the partisan weaponization of our justice system. He says that Matt Gaetz will, quote, end weaponized government, protect our borders, dismantle criminal organizations, and restore Americans' badly shattered faith and confidence in the Justice Department. Naming now Florida Senator Marco Rubio to be his Secretary of State. This is a pick that we've been talking about for about 24 hours now, but it hadn't been made official yet by the president-elect himself. We now have a statement from Trump saying that he looks forward to working with Marco to make America and the world safe and great again. Now, this is the second of the so-called Big Four positions that we have official names for, along with the Defense Secretary pick. That's Pete Hegseth, a combat veteran, and also a Fox and Friends weekend host. We're still waiting on the Treasury Secretary and the Attorney General to round out those big four positions, along with many other names.
We're announcing that we're partnering with SoftBank to bring and to build an AI infrastructure for Japan. Together, we're going to build Japan's largest AI factory. It's going to be built out of Nvidia DGX. When it's built early this coming year, it'll have 25 AI exaflops. Just remember, the largest supercomputer in the world just recently was 1 exaflops. This is 25 exaflops for an AI factory to produce the AI.
This ties into Jensen's long-standing view that every sovereign's going to want their own basket.
And I think that's terrific. Now, the key thing people have to recognize when he talked last night with you for this talk, he's talking about the idea of a digital AI and then also a physical AI. And the physical AI is really interesting because what Jensen is saying that they have the best chance at developing robotics. Now, why this is interesting is there a man with 6 jobs who just got a 7th Doge who
Elon Musk
wants to do robots, but this seems to say that Japan's got the lead in robots. But you could just argue everybody's got something cooking.
We know about Japan's demographic issues, probably worse than our own.
Yeah, and they need robots in order to be able to make their country hum. I think that robots may be the solution. David will like this. I'm just going to provoke him. If there are, let's say a more aggressive policy in terms of shutting down immigrants under, say, the next president, they need these robots.
Well, there is going to be a more aggressive policy. We don't know how aggressive it's going to be in terms of the deportations. We have to see, and that could eliminate jobs that are being done now. To your point, I don't know if the robots are yet ready to replace people who are putting roofs on homes or
which also kind of
doing agricultural jobs.
As Jensen told me, anything they can do physical. Anything we can do physical, they can do better.
Doesn't it make you wonder what kind of weaker job prints the president-elect is willing to tolerate?
Oh boy, that's
someone
really
who's as market-focused as we believe is.
That's very interesting. I don't think he's sitting here thinking if the 10-year goes lower in yield, the market will go up. I think he's just thinking about productivity.
Right.
And the productivity from robots is incredible. And David's quite wrong. The robots, according to Jensen, will be able to do things that will shock you, and dangerous things. That's because the advancement of these, unlike what these crybabies are talking about in terms of how slow the advancement is Jensen's
you mean beyond factory manufacturing, kind of physical labor? What are you talking about?
I think that almost all physical labor could be done by robots.
I think we have to revive this passion with the robotics, bring the AI, as you say, bring AI intelligence into the robotics. Knows everything. You're sick, your health.
Your tutor?
Yeah.
Since you were a child?
Exactly.
Yeah, remembered everything that you read, remember everything that it taught you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Your personal Aristotle.
Totally.
But don't call me Dave.
Good point. And never ever call me Andy.
Point taken.
So, this is us. Now avatars. Artificial intelligence. AI me is almost as good as Squawkbox me.
But let's be honest. Squawkbox you isn't nearly as good as Squawkbox me. Those were the golden years of Squawk.
David, even your avatar is cutthroat.
But here's the real question. Could AI Andrew cover for you the next time you oversleep?
I hope management isn't watching. It could be fun to trick them.
Well, how about I do a trick right now? Check this out. Hey, I'm over here now. You thought this was Andrew? It's actually me, David. Wow, it does feel cool to be you. Not cool enough to stick around, though. Well, that was fun.
Hey, don't body switch on me again. You don't know what it's like to be me. And you don't know what I'm capable of. Check this out. 이제 여러 언어를 말할 수 있어요. 정말 멋지지 않나요?
Oh, wow, you can speak pretty much any language. Well, so can I. Le renard brun rapide a sauté par-dessus le chien paresseux.
Okay, enough of that. Let's give Human Andrew and David their stage back.
I didn't know I knew Korean. I mean, that was really...
Yeah, Korean and French.
But that's pretty crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, I think the audience, to the extent they watch us, I think you can tell a bit that it's not quite you or quite me.
But I think in a year or two,
close.
I could sleep late.
Going to a different economy.
and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting at more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and when the dealers have to step in to save a treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. And
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 Kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York. From COVID Stories 3. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.